Okay, a short question, please raise your hand. Who of you has done translation or post-editing? At least a couple of lines, a sentence, something. Okay, okay. And raise a hand if you have worked with MT and wanted to transform it to human translation. So not only read, but also did post-editing. Oh, nice. Oh, so you know everything then. Good, good, because I will be talking really about the down-to-the-earth stuff, as we had Tony who was giving some hype, so I will be the person who will elaborate on statement that translation is hard. Yes. So these are the buzzwords. Okay, statistical MT or neural MT, it's still human person employed by single language vendor, working for multi-language vendor in exchange for money. So all the buzzwords, but that's really, really simple thing. So our company, we think that's our home market, Nordics and then Baltics and then office in Ukraine. So we cover this region. So that's why I will be talking about those languages, and particularly Baltic languages and Slavic languages, and of course, and even Finnish and Estonian language. They are really, really difficult to crack for MT. Therefore, I really envy those companies that work with Italian, with Portuguese. There are many more success stories over there with MT rather than in our region. Still, then the game is even more fun. And we have two kinds of customers. As we started 12 years ago, and started working for MLVs, for other translation companies. We still work for them a lot. And later we decided that, yes, we have enough of competence to work for life science companies, and we work for end customers too. But these are two very different kinds of customers. Translation companies, for whom we work, and customers from life science domain. So really, really difficult, different types of customers. And for life science customers, you need to be very competent. You need to demonstrate your expertise. And for other translation companies, there are not so many differentiators. And we even tell that we are like IKEA. Yes, we produce stuff. We produce stuff. You sell. You organize the whole process. You go to end customers and you create solutions. And you do all the marketing stuff like Apple does for iPhones, right? And somebody else produces those iPhones somewhere in the world. So we are those guys that do actual translation. And we tell, and agencies, they usually buy only a few languages from some regional smaller translation company or freelance translators. And then they really need prices, best prices every 1 year or even 2 years. So really, that's really valuable for them. And they need really quick communication about, can we take the order or we cannot take it? So here, MT either helps or does not help. And they also deal with many CAT tools, translation tools, and we need to have many of them. And MT is not so easy when you need to insert it, inject it in many different kinds of tools. It means that you need to deal with different formats. And the goal of my presentation is not to make some hype or not to make a call to action, but just inform. So it should be pretty boring, but it's down to the earth. It's how the things really work in this industry, how they really work at MLVs, at SLVs, at smaller translation companies, and how translators do their work. So MLVs, they need on-demand service. You need to answer very quickly whether you can take this project or not. Those multi-language vendors, right? And they need really great speed. Also, prices are very important. So MT definitely helps them to reap some benefits, and that's what they expect from their SLVs and translators, freelance translators. And they need capacities. They tell, you know, we suddenly received a very big project. It's 2,000 pages. You know, deadline is very aggressive. It's 2 weeks or 1 week. And then that SLV needs somehow to manage all the complexity, to jump to the train very quickly. and then also to use all the technologies very, very quickly. And MT either helps here or not. And then MLVs insert machine translation themselves and ask this count in front, and if translators or smaller translation companies are not productive, well, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they just sacrifice their profit margin, which means that even if you are small, you need to be really technology savvy to learn how to get those benefits. Otherwise, you will not be profitable. Despite all the hype, MT can help or it cannot. It depends how you use this technology. It's not 100% reliable technology. And those bigger translation companies, they use machine translation and have no fears, no blocks in mentality. They also use many technologies, many systems to which you need to integrate, or you need to receive files in some format and then return in some definite format. And the more formats there are, the bigger complexity there is, the bigger fragmentation there is. And despite all the localization standards in Exchange and like TMAX or Cliff, still there is big fragmentation, and tools are not so compatible between together. And they are multi-domain. They have sometimes translation into life sciences, sometimes into IT, and you need to deal with all of them if you are just a translator or a smaller language service provider. And they also change their teams quite frequently, not all of them. And if you don't have the basketball team, the same basketball team for the whole season, well, you will not win any games. So the more frequently you change your providers, the less possible that they will get your technology properly. But still we love them, because they are our customers and we know their challenges and we love them. And then end customers, they're completely different. They are less hectic, they are more long-time contracts and better forecasting. The price is more stable for your level of SLA. And you need competence to consult them, so not only speed and translation competence matters, but your project management and consulting and education competence matters. And they also need many solutions for many unique scenarios. So sometimes you need 3 steps of translation and a few of proofreading, and also some back translation and something else. So they are quite unique, which means that you can work out a solution with MT or not, and then it will stay for 2 years or 3 years. So it's really worth investing your time and money and helping them. While with MLVs in comparison, things change more quickly. And if you received quite big project and you have set up your engine for that project, for that particular tool, domain, and content type, is it marketing or is it some boring brochure? But then maybe after 1 month, there will be no further projects of the same kind. And your engine with all the proper setup, it's useless. At least you need to wait till something similar comes up. And there's usually one translation tool and one translation management system in a company. So you adapt, you integrate, you create your engine, you create the workflow, and this factory is set to go. And you use this factory relatively stably for next 2 years or 3 years. And it pays off to investigate deeper. And then there is one domain per company, it's life sciences. And if it's some pharmaceutical company, the domain is quite strict and their document types are quite strict. Even if there are new products, they usually are of the same or similar kind. So really, then you invest into technology, into MT, and it pays off you quickly and also in long term as well. There is less hectic kind of mentality. And they change for providers really, so you don't change your basketball team too often. And I'm talking about basketball because in Lithuania, in our region, basketball is the real game. And we love those clients too, and they're really, really different, both of them. And then a machine translation for bigger translation companies. If there are many translation tools, you need to convert, you need to integrate, as sometimes you need to upload the files to some system so that it checks automatically and returns to you back if it finds some technical glitches. Oof, complicated. So really not so fluid. And you need to convert. And does the format allow to inject machine translation yourself at your end or not? If they don't do that themselves, we need to take care of MT and we need to insert it. And it's not so easy. Also, you think you just put MT and that's it. But no. And particularly if content is with many tags and then the tags are not handled properly, for translator is too much work to handle those technical information, bits and pieces in files that are called tags. Content fragmentation. Some content is marketing, some content is those boring brochures that are really more productive for MT, but we just decided we'll apply MT for everything as to wait each time. Is it too marketing and then MT is not applicable, or is it not that much marketing and then MT will give the results of productivity? It's just waste of time as you need to decide all the time. And what's the difference between one brochure and the other brochure? Which one is more marketing? It's difficult to decide. Therefore, we just apply machine translation for all the content. Domain fragmentation, and we just use either industry based engine or just general, as still there are some productivity gains. And translators fragmentation, not all of them like MT, not all of them are good with MT. And MT is a must, and sometimes it gives no return, then SLV finances. And it's still kind of early technology in some cases. At least it's not how to say, classic technology as translation memory that nobody even has any doubt that it helps. And some languages are MT productive and some languages are not MT productive. And then MT for life science and customers, it can be really used for scenarios where they really need quick translations just to know what's there in the market. Is there any new litigation against them in India? Or some press wrote some article in France about how this new drug will make a carbon imprint next year. So they quickly translate and then they decide whether they need human translation or not, whether they need post-editing services at all or not. And for them, this speed of getting information really quickly for all around the world is really valuable. And then it can be used for post-editing and getting the paper translated properly and then used to work with lawyers, with PR people. But at first, we need really speedy answer. What's happening there on the market? What's the buzzer about the products? And for MT for reducing cost is not that much relevant as it's seen too risky sometimes. And at least it should be really legally defended against other departments, and all the risks should be weighted. And life science companies, they try with innovation, but for them it's only a productivity driver. While for translation companies, it's much more. It's speed, it's agility, it's capacities. But for those kind of customers, at least for those that we work with, they see, okay, you will be more productive. That's good. But that's your benefits. But in case there is a translation mistake, how you deal with that, and is it because of MT or is it because of human translator? And we know perfectly that not MT is to blame, but translator carries all the responsibility for all the final outcome of the text. So if he uses MT or not, still translator is to blame. Only MT sometimes gives additional, I don't know, stigma, additional risk that, oh, maybe it's because of MT, because of Google Translate. And in comparison, the classic technology translation memory is both productivity and language quality. And life science companies, they don't see that MT improves the quality. Also, MLVs know that it does improve. because it inserts terminology, mandatory terminology, or at least gives fragments from the same project account. And human translator, I even don't call them post editors because they're translators. Maybe some of them are only post editors, but well, we need all of them because there is too much content to be translated. So we need not only new kind of translators which are post editors, but also all the human translators in the world because there is too much content to be translated or post edited. So we cannot waste a good translator. We better help them to adapt technologies. And what's the real productivity? What's the proper pay? We suggest that the pay is by hours or somehow, but they should not see MT as a risk for reducing rates and earning less and less every year. Then they will just be fighting against. Are they MT afraid or not? Are they MT productive or not? For example, we have a translator that does translations into Estonian language, which is really difficult for MT, and that's her productivity without MT. Not bad. And for all the content. And that's her productivity with MT. Very strange. That's not the case with all the translators, but it happens. And sometimes they just dislike some CAT tool, some translation tool. And sometimes, well, okay, not sometimes, they report false hours. When we tell we inserted MT, we'll pay you by hours so that you would not earn less. And then, but you need only to report the real time spent. Well, and they don't report the real time spent. Because if it's easy to report bigger time, why not to report bigger time? And sometimes they see that it's not big excitement and hype if there is pressure for productivity, if friends are asking, are you really using Google Translate? So it's not always a pride to acknowledge that, yes, I'm working with machine translation. As earlier you were doing everything yourself, now some technology helps you. So sometimes it can have demoralizing effect. And then speeds. These are speeds. Actual words per hour and MT applied or not. And as you can see, there are green speeds that are big ones. That's the speed for that Estonian lady. And there is also speed like that, 68 words per hour. And as you can see, sometimes for some languages, I haven't put any languages there, but these are Lithuanian, Latvian, Estonian, Russian, Swedish, and Finnish somewhere. So really, really big fragmentation. I was really surprised that for the same type of content with the same MT engine, sometimes people do really, really different, give really different results. But you just take into account, and that's it, that people are different, and their heads are working different, and also on Monday, they are not so working well. So on Friday, yes, too. So yeah, there is fragmentation in conditions. Right. So, and how translator gets more productive? Even if MT is not fluent, but at least you grasp the meaning quicker. And what you do in your head without MT, you also need to grasp the meaning and then convert into fluent phrases and sentences. So at least you grasp the meaning faster. No need to type simple words, as there are difficult words, terminology words, and simple words. And then some difficult terms can be guessed. No need to research on the internet. No need to insert tags or numbers. And if that translator has no mental block that he's being influenced by machine. How much time do I have?
You have about 10 minutes, but we have run over before, so I mean.
Okay, okay.
You're enjoying.
Good, because we'll be going online, right? So
yeah,
we need not to miss that.
But we have a break before that.
Okay. And what's machine translation? Sometimes it's the absent-minded professor with funny accent from a foreign country and making some strange mistakes. Yes, and that's machine translation. And if you're comfortable working with that really good professor who is sometimes absent-minded and sometimes leaves some words out and sometimes puts the wrong endings to the words, but it's okay. There are many different professors in the world, and they don't need to be really, well, like lawyers or bankers, yes. And they still have really nice insights. But you need to somehow to tolerate that text, which is really sometimes strange, and you read lots of that text every day. And can everyone from translators manipulate the text quickly, copying, pasting longer fragments, changing the word order, and removing endings for morphologically rich languages? Can person be fast enough, and does he or she get tired too quickly? Because this manipulation, it's energy consuming. And speeds gets you more tired. And if you are speeding the whole day, it's like Formula 1 race. It's okay for Formula 1, but for Dakar race, some people do that. But not everybody is capable of participating in Dakar race every day, except for vacations, of course. And practically, as a company, we insert machine translation only if file format has less tags. Because if there are too many, it's too difficult to manipulate the text. If files are not small, at least 1,000 words says. Otherwise, administration of those tiny, tiny files that nowadays bigger translation companies send to smaller translation companies are, well, they send more and more frequently. If cat tool is not complicated, and MT can be inserted. Sometimes they are closed systems like across translation tool. And if that translator is productive, that Estonian lady, she's not productive with MT, but she's just very productive without MT. 1,400 words per hour. That's good. That's good. And if language and content allows to be productive with MT, and if we have time. Sometimes there is no time to insert MT. And goal for MT, faster, better, cheaper, bigger quantity. And usually there are no other goals. So start as a more risky project, despite all the help of MT providers. Still, you will only know if it helps you after you do it and you measure it and you see the results. And fund properly, as even if it's easier to launch engine quickly, it's still change of technology. It's still quite big paradigm shift. And measure constantly your KPIs. Then you can tell, I saved that much money or time on French language, I saved that much on Estonian, I saved that much on Swedish, and then you can tell without any hype whether it worked for you, for your content, for your situation, then or not. And talk to translators, because translation is hard, as we heard in a presentation before, as they ride your MT vehicle and you are only a support personnel. Even MT providers or translation companies, they are support personnel. And the main people are translators because they are writing. And SMT advantages we already mentioned, therefore I will go quicker. You control many things there, and all of them matter, because if there are mistakes in all of those, you need to fix them, and it takes time. And then gains of MT are not that significant. And in morphology-rich languages, it's still not good. And neural, fluent, word order is much better, endings are much better. Well, some risk, not always 100% controllable. And if you put lots of new content into your engine, when building new version of it, it might get more tricky. You don't know how it will impact. Maybe it will damage because your data was bad, and the damage will be much bigger. And it's like absent-minded professor needs to be verified and helped by a down-to-the-earth spouse, because some words can be missing, some things can be forgotten, but there are really nice insights, and otherwise you will Google for those insights, for those difficult terminology instances. And here you just have employed a professor, which is really good. And translators' attention wears off more quickly because to work with a professor for the whole day, yeah, correcting mistakes, it's not an easy job for a spouse, right? And what matters in the end, did we save time or cost or energy? And did we make less mistakes? Because you can make less mistakes, especially with statistical machine translation engines, as the right terminology is inserted, and you will less likely make a mistake of terminology. With neural, it's not that controllable. And neural MT, does it help to produce more? It depends. Yes, as you told, it depends on the particular translator, on a resourceful MT provider, if they help you or not. And you guys do a really great job, Kantan team. You really educate, explain, help, and that's really valuable. And that's really important. That's why we are with you by now. And on a disciplined PM team, project managers, because they do the insertion of machine translation. And on translators. And if when their management loves them, educates them, calms down them when they get some new technology, which is neural MT. Maybe it's frightening. So classic tools are much less risk investment. And SMT is also much less risk investment, but an MT research potential is just limitless. And MT is a cab, and translator is the cab driver. So everything happens there. Some of it happens there, but all the rest happens there. And that person is responsible for the final outcome. So let's help them. Love translator, support extensively, pay properly. That's very important. Because now we also talk, oh, we'll reduce the cost, and how? We'll pay less for somebody. And should not receive less money without MT. Should not take all the risks if MT is a crap, because sometimes it is, not always, but with some content, with some files, someday. And we love technologies. We love technologies, and we sometimes curse about CAD tools, about MT, about everything, because there are difficulties on the way. But we love all the new technologies, and I myself, I'm a technology enthusiast, but I also CEO. I need to pay the costs and everything, so I know when things go well or not. So I need to be both enthusiastic and down to the earth, which is not so easy. But MT is really helping us, and we're really energized solving those daily issues. And it's not so easy. And I told my colleagues, listen, do you want a boring job or a challenging job? So challenging is when you have problems and when you solve them. And all the new technologies, they bring you some problems for sure. But it's a pleasure to solve them. So thank you.